coming up on today's show.
Kids today have a variety of ways, or the teachers use different vehicles for communicating what the assignments are.
Sometimes we think, oh yeah, I know I got to do this, I know I got to do this. Then you get all this mental clutter going on, kind of an...
Okay, this can be a real challenge with so many distractions, particularly our social media, texting, wanting to look at YouTube.
Helping students get their homework done. Today on Keeping You Organized. Well, it is back to school time now, and welcome to Keeping You Organized. We are talking today about how to help your students do a better job organizing, getting their homework done. And we're going to bring on a new podcast guest, Diane Thompson. Diane, welcome to Keeping You Organized.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and so your website is thompsonblueprints.com, and we're going to talk more about your business side of it later, but let's talk about why we're talking to a professional organizer or certified professional organizer coach about students.
Okay, yeah. So I stumbled into this a number of years ago when my son was in elementary school. And what I discovered is that young students, particularly once they hit middle school, they have difficulty keeping up with all the different tasks and variety of expectations and styles of their teachers, because their young brains aren't necessarily ready to navigate, planning out getting the variety of assignments done and negotiating their time. So I step in and help parents with their kids figure that out.
Yeah, I know a lot of parents out there, including myself, having 4 kids, know that there's plenty of those evenings when you're going, you want to pull your hair out, because even just getting them started on their homework, and it's probably like getting organized, they're overwhelmed and they really don't know even sometimes like how to get moving on it. So I know you have these 5 elements that we're going to talk about today. So let's get into that right now. Let's talk about the first element or tip about helping students get their homework done.
Okay, so I start with the what, because kids today have a variety of ways, or the teachers use different vehicles for communicating what the assignments are. It's not the simple write it on the chalkboard and the kid writes it down in the classroom. It's really an expectation that the student needs to gather. They need to kind of be a detective each day after school and gather the information by either reviewing what the teacher told them in class, by going to a online vehicle like Google Classroom or Edmodo to see what the teacher has listed there. Not all the teachers may use that. Some teacher may have their own website. So the student needs to gather it all so they have this big picture view of what they actually have to get done. And that may be from the next day's assignment to a long-term assignment.
So when you're working with a client or a student, what are the kinds of things you get them thinking about at this stage?
Well, I encourage them, this place to start is to say that it's not enough for them to keep it all just in their head, and which they think that they can, but that it's important for them to write it down and have a visual representation so they can look at it and do an overview of what they need to get done, so that they can then compare it with what do they have, what other activities do they have, and when are they going to get it done.
Right. Yeah, it seems like, when you're getting organized, sometimes we think, oh yeah, I know I got to do this, I know I got to do this. Then you get all this mental clutter going on, kind of, and getting it down somehow on paper or in some kind of plan really makes it helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, what's the second element that we have to look at when helping students with their homework?
Having remembering when things are due. And so, one of the biggest complaints of parents are my child has missed, 6 assignments, or my child remembered at 9:00 at night that something was due the next day. And so it keeps that assignment, particularly when it's further out on the horizon, it keeps it in sight so that they need to remember, gee, if it's due on Wednesday and I have an activity on Tuesday, I need to start it on Monday. So the keeping when it's due in sight helps the planning process.
Right. It sounds like, do you get into calendars then, or how do you, what kind of tool do you use with students? I mean, I'm sure a lot of them have the calendar on their phone, but
Right.
how do you manage that with someone who's, 15, 16, 17 years old?
Well, I have to work hard to really, communicate to them that I'm not there to tell them what to do, but I'm there to work with them. It's got to set the stage that I'm collaborating with them so that they can reduce their stress and be successful. But I always recommend, and a podcast guest you've had on before, Leslie Josel's student planner. I'm a Leslie fan, and I introduce the planner and reinforce the importance of learning how to plan by using a paper planner. And I always say you can use an electronic app later on when you get the concepts down, but let's use this planner and add the information, add the list of what they need to do, identify the due dates, etc. with that planner.
Yeah, and that planner has some great visual aids. I know a couple of my kids have used it, and it's a great way for, like Leslie says, for them to be able to see their time.
Exactly.
And that's real, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So I was going to say my next element is part of how Leslie has set up that planner to include the after school hours at the bottom of each week, and that's the next element is, well, gee, when do they have time to actually do their homework? And particularly kids who are very overscheduled or have multiple activities, they need to fill in when their activities are. Think about transition time, which is driving to and from. Think about, well, what do they need a break? Do they need a snack? When is dinner? When is bedtime? And filling that all in then tells them, oh, these are my blocks of time that I actually have to do my homework. Their eyes pop open with, wow, I only have a half an hour 3 days a week to do homework, but I have a whole lot more homework to do than that.
It's hard to make them, realize that they're in the real world now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because most kids don't seem to have that concept of time.
No, and part of it is, especially before middle school, parents are organizing their time.
Yeah.
They're telling the kids when to do what, how long, where. And then suddenly middle school comes and it's, okay, now it's your job, figure it all out. And that's really not fair. They haven't had the experience nor the instruction to figure it all out.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, so we're down. We have 3 points done. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll cover the other two elements of how to get students to do a better job getting their homework done and being a successful student. We're with Diane Thompson on Keeping You Organized, and we'll be right back. It's the summer sale at myorganized.life with 25% off office products like file folders, hanging folders, accordion files, and presentation products. You can get it at myorganized.life. That's myorganized.life. 25% off all products. It's our summer sale at myorganized.life. We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about how to help your student do well on their homework and just be a successful student in general. We have with us Diane Thompson from ThompsonBlueprints.com, and also we'll talk about her business here in just a moment. But part of what she does as a professional organizer is work with students. And Diane, so we've covered 3 of these elements. Let's get into number 4.
Okay, so this is the trickier one because this is planning how long assignments will take. And in order to do that, you need to be able to estimate how long something's going to take. And I know myself, I'm not even the greatest estimator because what I think about how long something will take is really how I wish, how long I wish it will take. And so it's particularly for young kids who don't have a sense of passage of time, they first have to learn and feel the passage of time. And we do that with different elements of using analog clocks and a device called the time timer that helps demonstrate a visual of the passage of time. And then, so it's working on estimating, maybe collecting some data about comparing what their estimation is with maybe the actual time that something took. And so that once they once someone gets that experience of, oh, it takes me 10 minutes to do my math worksheet, but if I'm going to write a research paper, I know there's many steps to it, and I have to break that down and plan for each of those steps, and that's going to take me maybe 30 minutes a day. So it's using that understanding of how long something will take and then fitting that into their work, their homework time blocks.
This reminds me of one of my kids who has you'll ask her, well, how are you doing on that research paper? She goes, I'm almost done. Well, what does that mean? I mean, do you have 5 of the 15 pages done or 12 of the 15? Well, and they kind of just, they don't have. So how do you kind of help them estimate? I mean, is there any tools or techniques? I mean, you have the timers, obviously. What do you do with that? Do you kind of time something and say, see, here's how long it takes to do such and such?
Yeah, and when I'm working with them, I may sometimes experiment where they may do a math assignment and we time it. However, most of the time I ask them to do that on their own. I introduce the time timer, demonstrate how they can use it to collect their data. But the biggest thing is just having an analog clock in their view while they're doing their homework in the bathroom, in the kitchen, so that there is this understanding that it may be 11:30. Now, let's say after school, it may be 4 p.m., but dinner is at 5:30. And so I have an hour and a half. But watching that analog clock helps them recognize that it's not just moments of time like when you read a digital clock, but it's okay. I've been working for an hour and dinner is in a half an hour. Well, how much do I have left? How much more can I do before dinner starts? And so it's really beyond just feeling the passage of time, but keeping one's awareness on time as it passes.
Awesome. Okay, so now that brings us to point number 5.
Yeah. Okay, managing the task as time passes. Yeah. Okay, this can be a real challenge with so many distractions, particularly our social media, texting, wanting to look at YouTube. It's okay. I was going to finish my outline for my research paper, and I thought it was going to take me a half hour, but that half hour just passed. My time timer just went off. And where am I at in this paper? What do I need to refocus? How do I need to refocus? Do I need to get a snack? Do I need to just take a 10-minute break and refresh myself? But it's also knowing, how do you work best? Does one want to start with the hardest task first and get that out of the way so that they can relax for the rest of the evening? Or do they need to get a little in the groove? So they may start something that's less challenging, like a math worksheet or a language vocab sheet, so that they kind of get that out of the way, they get in the groove, and then get moving on the harder stuff. So it's really figuring out what works for them to help the energy level, to help with the focus, paying attention to when focus is lost and maybe need to do something to bring it back. So it's really about awareness while one is doing their work.
Now, do you ever tell them to turn their phone off and just keep it off for 1 hour and 30 minutes so that, because of the distractions seem to be a real big issue with kids?
It is a huge one, and it's always a topic of conversation. And so, of course, ideally, it would be great if their phone was off, was in another room, so it was less tempting. But that's just one part of the picture, because children, a lot of homework is done online, assignments are provided online. So I have students where they keep their YouTube tabs open. It's right there. And to even the idea that, no, you want to shut all those distraction tabs off so you're not tempted to, oh, let me click and see what's on YouTube today, or what's happening with WrestleMania, or I'd like to play that video game with my friend right now. So there is software to help block those, and there's a lot of options out there, but that is the parental struggle with managing that with kids and helping them, because they don't see it as a distraction. The fear of missing out and the pleasure they get from it is so such a strong drive. It's an ongoing conversation.
Yes, and I'm sure that working with parents and trying to implement that, there might be some power struggles going on there too. So having a way to
Yes.
deal with it and letting them keep it on might be a good compromise. But they're just going to have to contact you. In fact, we're running out of time here. Before we go, can you tell us a little bit about your business and the kinds of customers that you work with and how people can get a hold of you? Maybe put out your website.
Okay, so my business is Thompson Blueprints for Living. I've been in business for about 15, 16 years, and I do specialize in working with students, middle schoolers, high schoolers, but I also work with families and individuals in their homes, people with excessive clutter, people struggling to get things done. So I do productivity and time management with adults as well. And I really enjoy working with young couples on how to manage their daily lives with all that they have on their plate, especially when there's two income homes. So it's a wide range, but my website is www.thomsonblueprints. So that's Thompson with an H, but without a P, thomsonblueprints.com.
Okay, and do you do virtual coaching and organizing, or is it just in a geographic area?
I do phone coaching, dedicated coaching sessions. Mainly I work with people with ADHD, but I do have hoarding clients with hoarding disorder that I coach by phone. It not so much virtual in the sense of having a Skype or a Zoom connection, but it's really a process of coaching people through awareness and action so that they can make changes.
Awesome. Well, we will have your contact information. We're going to have links in the show notes for all this too. And Diane, thank you. Good job on your first time on the show.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Now, if you're getting ready for school and you want to help your students, maybe have them watch this episode as well. Take some of those tips down, and then we'll see you next time on Keeping You Organized.